The National Collaborative for Health Equity invites you to listen to part two of a two-part conversation about storytelling and collective healing, tending to our humanity.
Stephanie, just so everyone's clear, because people might know other Stephanies, but you, Stephanie, are STEF as in fantastic, ANIE. And I just thought this was the perfect opportunity for a quick commercial and PSA about the spelling of your name. But Stephanie, I have heard you speak, and I think you previously had even mentioned this loving disruption, this even in your own personal life, family life, kind of saying, "Hey, I might need to put some things down here."
Mhm.
So you've been talking about this connection to your own healing and storytelling throughout your entire life, and I've heard you describe that as a resistance. So, a word I like. So, can you speak to how your resistance began even as a child and has stayed with you, and how it shapes your work today?
Absolutely. Thank you. Um, so yes, I remember being a person of song and spirit since I was a child. Um, my family and simultaneously, my family birthed me at a time when they were still very much surviving the varied traumas of their lives. Traumas that are connected to systemic racism, that are connected to very deep desire for belonging that led to domestic violence, sexual violence, among many more. And I know I'm not alone. So even as I say these words, I want all of us listeners to just ground and deepen and take some beautiful, uh, gracious exhales. And I will too, to help breathe my humanity here. And so I witnessed in my family life a lot of surviving through various addictions, various ways of numbing or completely bypassing truth. And then I would go out into what my daughter now calls Mother God Nature. I would go out into the yard and sing and be with Mother God Nature and just color outside the lines and sing my truth out to the trees and to the earth. Um, and it wasn't until being in music class that I was discovered, quote, quote, and and, guided to the pathway of performing arts and led onto a stage. Um, Prior to this, I would try to process my feelings. I'm a very expressive human being, for those of y'all who don't know me just yet. Um, and so at home, I would try to process my heart around my mother, and she'd say, "Please, Mija, stop crying. It hurts mommy when you cry." And so for me going onto the stage, I was able to gather all of that feeling. And this, mentor acknowledged my talent. And she said, "Stephanie, just go out there and sing into the light." And so I sang my full expression of my heart, my grief, my loneliness, my truth through that performance. And I remembered the audience responding to me with earnest applause. And to that, I learned as I was standing my ground, singing into the light, singing and communicating my truth and my deep feelings of my heart. Not only is my heart welcome here, but it's celebrated. And so that led me into an earnest and eager discovery of finding more spaces where my heart was welcome and celebrated, and then led me to create those spaces for other people to help communicate. And I hope you feel this, listeners, and Maria with me right now. Your heart is welcome and celebrated here. I'm all about expressing and being with the truth that resides in our hearts and all the story tales that reside within and all the stories we get to live through. Oh, wait, and I do wanna say, so this is to how it is resistance because I was surrounded by people that would rather turn their eyes away from the pain, from the suffering. They'd rather turn their eyes away and then numb and cope with all these isms, right? And even now in this day and age, we have even more ways in which we numb or we bypass truth or we cope with truth through these different mechanisms and mediums. And for me, it's all about not doing that, but actually grounding and embodying our truth in our hearts and fully expressing so that we can metabolize and alchemize what was so that we can reach together to what can be.
I am so grateful that I know you. I now
Mhm.
wish that we could have been small children together, but in our dreams, in our dreams. And I just want to underscore that, yeah, you are not alone in that experience. And so I sincerely hope that others whose hearts are beating a different pace because of the resonance, that
Mm,
they lean into the opportunity to ground and practice what you are talking about as their own personal and perhaps within their own families, resistance
mm,
to the oppressive um, isms all around them.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, and to that, I do wonder, Maria, do you have a practice or something that you can help support us in processing repressed grief or suppressed grief to help us return to our wholeness?
Yes, I do. I do. I'd like to take a minute to just talk openly about grief, and then I'm happy to like jump into that. That would be
Beautiful.
so yummy. So yes, grief. How did we get here? We're here now because grief, it just shows up. It's here with us. I think it is just an element of our human experience. It is a part of our humanity. It's one of those things, Stephanie, that I think people try to turn away from. And they do that in a number of ways. One of them, a word you just brought up, they suppress it, they push it down, and they figure if it's far enough down, then I don't have to deal with it. But how you forgot that sometimes the things you are pushing down, you are actually planting seeds, and your grief will not leave you, it will grow. And so when I
Mm,
started out as a leadership coach, I actually got certified in grief coaching because I saw how much loss and love there was around me, from the actual physical death of people during the COVID-19 pandemic, the height of it, to all the intangible losses that were happening that sometimes folks couldn't even name, like the loss of a hoped for future, the loss of a desired possibility. I mean, all the way to the idea of like we're losing touch with reality. We are losing our democracy, the idea of fairness in the United
mm,
States and in other countries, just falling away, falling through our fingertips, right out of reach, and maybe not even possible. And so I saw this, and I know I'm not alone in the witnessing of it either. And it reminded me of something that I heard Kara Page say. Kara Page is one of the
mm.
co-architects of healing justice as a political
Yes,
strategy.
yes.
Um, and she was sharing about starting to do that healing justice work, that organizing work with elders in the United States South. And she said that one of the opening questions she gave the group was, "So, what are you going to do about your grief?" And these
Mm,
experienced lifers were just like, girl, that is not what we are here to talk about. We have things to fix in our community. And it wasn't until that question sat with them like a seed planted and they kept living just a little bit more that they came back to Carol like, okay, yeah, this grief thing, tell me more, right? So I think that, one, human beings are not the only beings that grieve. Shout out to my elephants, orcas, dolphins. I see y'all. But grieving is a common and central part of our human experience, and it has not been given the space and attention it requires for us to be healthy, in my opinion, for us
mhm,
to be well, because it does things like invite emotions, feelings. It slows us down. It changes our patterns. It invites us to learn new practices. And I basically find that all of that stuff is a disruption to the grind and cruelty of capitalism. And so, therefore, we try to turn away from it. We try to cope around it. Um, a survey of bereaved adults in the United States found that 34% showed signs of post traumatic stress disorder.
mm,
34%. So, take three people, one of them that's bereaved is showing signs of post-traumatic stress and just trying to, as folks would say, move on, get over it. That's not how this works, right? Similarly, another study showed that about the same amount, 30% of bereaved individuals experience a depressive episode within the first year after their loss, and that the
Mm,
risk of suicide for some people really does increase significantly. So, loss leading to more loss, right? And folks really not just feeling a deep sadness or having to navigate life beyond this thing that they loved not being physically tangible for them, but I consider depression, a depressive episode, a type of suffering, a specific type of suffering, an indication of deep imbalance and people needing support to come back into alignment with themselves. To offer another perspective, there's a Grief Recovery Institute. They did a study, I think in 2003, maybe 2013. But companies in the United States lose over $75 billion with a B annually in productivity due to specifically grief related issues. Issues such as
mm,
absenteeism, the reoccurrence of deep errors, people experiencing burnout. Now, more importantly than these companies who are losing money, I think that these companies are also there are people employed by them who are showing that they are struggling, suffering, and oftentimes feeling isolated, that there are not supportive policies and practices to help these people. That's what the $75 billion annual loss means to me. But
mm,
for folks who speak that language of monetary loss, I just want to invite you to consider how much is the grief costing you. Um, I mean, did you
mm,
know that non-white children in the United States are both 2 times more likely to experience the death of their father and 3 times more likely to experience the death of their mother than white children in the United States
mm.
are? And this disparity is rooted, of course, in a number of environmental and societal discrepancies, but it also has real and material consequences for the impacted children and their communities beyond that deep grief. I mean, think of what your parents provide for you when you are a child, and now you do not have those people. You might have other people, you might have other community, but also because of existing inequities in our society that disproportionately expose non-white children, Black and brown children to this experience, you may not have other kinfolk who step up. You might now be in a foster system that may or may not see your full humanity to begin with. So
Mhm.
the impacts, right? The ripple effects of loss and the levels of grief, I think we definitely are not having mainstream conversation about. I promise this is my last stat on this, but I just want to make sure, like, I'm not just saying, oh, grief is out there. I saw it and this is why I'm doing it. Like, people are researching this. You can look these things up. But 68% of adults surveyed in the US report some type of physical effect of their grief. This can
Mm,
range from body aches to fatigue, changes in appetite. Additional physical effects include weakened immune systems, heart palpitations, digestive problems. So, there are scholars out there who consider grief a determinant of health, right?
yeah.
Influenced by collective experiences such as structural racism, systemic violence, forced displacement, and
Mhm,
historical trauma. And I agree. When I'm doing my work, I'm treating grief as simultaneously universal, but also unique human experience. I'm treating it as a collective story, grief as
mhm.
our story, and also as a public health issue. Um,
Mm,
so, why, none of my clients, honestly, that come to me for work, individually or organizationally, are running to me because of grief. I have a small percentage that want grief coaching and they get it.
mhm,
Um, Most of them are coming because they're navigating some type of change. They're trying to build some type of culture. They're trying to reach consensus, trying to integrate equity strategies into their policies or develop as leaders. And I don't know, I would propose that by inserting grief coaching and highlighting grieving as an element and common thread in all of those aspirational goals, that's my little way of rehumanizing processes that we've tried to dehumanize over time, by asking people, is this what you really need right now? Is this what you really want? Like, if we got to this consensus, what would that mean actually?
Mhm.
And so I like to bring that line of inquiry into it. I mean, we can say that I'm pressure testing and giving you a landscape analysis, which I am, but I'm also inviting you to sit with your grief.
Yeah.
Because whenever something changes, we will lose something. And we got to ask ourselves, how are we impacted by that loss? And who is most impacted by that loss? And does that
Mhm.
person have a voice and a vote at this table? Because what
Mm.
delusional white supremacy culture will do is offer a false sense of urgency that
Yes.
bulldozes over the spaciousness we need to make sense of things and to make meaning together and to create. And we cannot move with our grief if we don't honor that spaciousness. Delusional white supremacy culture also protects itself by prioritizing the perceived comfort of whiteness and often white people at the expense of others. And when you couple that with capitalism, oftentimes it will attempt to excuse that exploitation that it necessitates and the harm it causes by saying there's some monetary profit we're going to get to. And so it prioritizes the profit over the people, and it
Mhm.
causes more harm than it does humanize. And so I think that by infusing the skills and practices of my grief coaching work into my general organizational development and change management practices, that I'm really inviting people to slow down and to
Mm.
consider deeply. I mean, maybe back to an original question, like, is this the most humane way to go about doing what you're trying to do? Is this kind? Is it sustainable? Is it fair? And again, that question of who's most deeply impacted when we change this, we lose something. Can you name what you're losing? Can you name
Yes.
what you're losing? And I think that
Yes.
centering that truth, I hope, is considered a form of resistance to oppressive
Absolutely.
dehumanization, but it's definitely the way I get folks there. And so, how did we take this winding road? You asked me for a practice. You asked me for something.
Well, well, now you're actually inspiring me to ask you about something else because it does feel like your grief work is, and your work as a facilitator in general, is an act of resistance. Would you agree with that statement?
I would now, because you said it. Thank you, Stephanie. I would now. Yeah, yes, more and more so, yes. Not at the beginning. It just really felt like the way for me to enter because most change
Mhm.
management consultants have a laundry list of credentials and clients that they're working with. So it came out of a survival. It came out of a survival strategy. How will I enter the marketplace and present myself as someone with something to contribute that is distinct from what's already out there? And so grateful for those who trusted me, especially in the early
Mhm.
days. You early clients, you know who you are. Thank you. You trusted me with this untested hypothesis. But yeah, and I find that when I circle back with folks, when I hear the impact of that seedling work is what I'll call it now.
Mhm.
That what is breaking through what's been cultivated is something much more humane. Even to hear from someone that, "Oh, I thought being a supervisor meant that I was in charge and that my way was the way, that my way or the highway, right? But now
Mm.
I'm thinking of being a supervisor as being the most supportive person on the team for the folks who come to me." And I wasn't thinking of it that way before. And it actually feels lighter and more inviting to lead from that posture versus I'm in charge and therefore responsible for everything these people do. And that's what was the energy behind my
Mhm.
micromanagement. That was the energy around my risk aversion, is I didn't want to make a
Mm.
mistake. I
Yeah.
didn't want to mess up via these people or by these people.
Mhm.
But when I think of myself as a supporter, and I'm like, can I see them? You know what we said earlier about storytelling. Am I listening to what they're saying and their experiences? Slowing down and really thinking about, okay, where are we in our team dynamic, in our arc? Are we performing? Are we norming? Is this a storm? And that's normal and that's fine, right? And then, like,
Mhm.
where are we? Like, that's the question I like to ask. Like, not like what's going on, like, where are you? And I get to pull that from my religious practice. Like, when we're separated from God and God's looking for us, God doesn't go, "What did you do, Adam?" God goes, "Yeah, well, where are you?" You know,
Yes.
like, I'm here. Where are you? So I think that's a fun question too. But if I'm not backing away from the practice. We will get there. But I have a
Absolutely.
burning question. I have a burning question, Stephanie. May I ask you it?
Please, yes.
Okay. We're in a time, and I think we've alluded to the times. We've alluded to the times. And I'm just really curious, like what you have noticed across the board when it comes to our reactions and responses to these times.
Mm. To me, it speaks a lot to what you're even saying right now. I feel like the system wants us frantic, wants us feeling that urgency culture. I know I've been feeling it from time to time. Wants us scattered, afraid, traumatized constantly, and feeling overwhelmed. And I've noticed us collectively, and I'm including myself in this collective. Let's be clear, healing artists, not healer, healing artists. Um, you know, turning to the devices, and having that, fuel our vices to a degree, right? I could just feeding, and I think this is a trap we can easily get caught in, right? Like wanting to stay informed, wanting to know what is going on, wanting to keep our finger on the pulse of humanity right now. And as things, continue to shift and simultaneously, we forget to have that sacred pause to let ourselves remember the sacred council. If we remember in part one, the time to be with ancestors, to be with spirit, as you name uh, spirit, to really help us acknowledge that, you know, generations have been here before. There is guidance here, and there we can overcome, and we will with the support of collective. Because that's the other thing: the urgency culture and us turning to the different devices has us separate from one another, and separating and otherizing each other, rather than grounding, having that sacred pause, remember our humanity, remember kindness as you spoke to it earlier, and consider the many ways in which love can catch up with us, wisdom can catch up with us that is not ours and collectively ours simultaneously, and to act accordingly. So I
Mm,
already spoke to how we can we can be a part of what's possible, but I do notice us really wanting to feed ourselves with information. Oh, this is the other thing. We're overwhelming our cognition and we're not taking any time to embody and to like witness. We're severing our head from our hearts and from our bodies. And we're normalizing our relationship with grief. So that's also why I see your work as so radical, right? For us to really ground into the truth of our grief and all of these grievances that we're becoming aware of on the daily, right? To bear witness to it and actually be with our humanity as we witness the inhumane.
mm. I feel like if I were the type of millennial who couldn't just have something and hold it, who needed to monetize every one-liner I heard, I feel like I have a Stephanie line of products from that response. Like turning to the devices to feed our vices, witness the inhumane without losing our humanity. Oh, like I'm reminded of your great artistry, perhaps even rapper. I like it. Poet. Um,
Yes,
but no,
I
that
am a
was real.
poet.
You
Spoken word,
are.
y'all.
That was so rich. Um, it was, and thank you for it. It was super duper rich. It gives me just enough fuel to think of a practice for the grief.
Mm,
Um, there's so much. There's breath work, and even if people are into the tapping, I'm a big proponent that grief wants to move. It wants to
yes.
move, and that is why suppressing it is so dangerous. Because similarly to how there is this research that we are unearthing now that so many women in particular suffer from autoimmune diseases because of trauma and anger they have suppressed. Um,
Hmm.
Grief is not necessarily an all consuming emotion. It often works with it works with others, so there is
Yes.
grief and anger, there is grief and resentment, there is grief and joy, there
Yes.
is grief and appreciation. So it works with others, but what it wants to do, I feel, is move. And so
Yeah.
I try to bring people into practices that will give them a moment to connect with the grief and stillness and then make a choice about what to do with it in that moment, right? It doesn't mean where you put it or what you do with it is going to be what you can always come back to. But in this moment, identify, locate, find out what, first of all, what it is you have lost that is resonating with you in this moment. What's coming up right now? If I say, hey, think about something you've lost that you loved, because sometimes we
Mhm.
lose things that we aren't really that in love with, like I can think of a few things, but I want to keep the Hope in Action podcast going. I don't want to endanger it. So think of something that you love, present tense, past tense, and you have lost. What is that loss? What is that loss? And where in your body do you remember that loss having lived at some point? Sometimes for a lot of us, it's right in the heart. And if you're struggling to locate, I would invite you to start with your heart. Place hands over your heart. Feel your heartbeat. For others, it might be another place. It might be in your head. Hold your head with your hand and let the head's weight be felt in your hand, right? Wherever the place is, some of us it's in our gut, some of it is I feel it in the small of my back. Wherever it is, feel where the thing you love and lost was living. And now shift to feeling that it's not there the way it was before. Feel the loss of it. Does your heart beat at a different pace? Does your head feel heavier or lighter? Does the small of your back recoil from your touch as you consider the loss? All of those little shifts are a movement. I invite you to exaggerate that movement and consider the grieving, the active grieving you're doing in your body on account of that loss. So even opening your chest and feeling your heartbeat. Is it fainter? Is it a slow movement in? Is it getting louder? Is it a yearning out? Move your head maybe from side to side. Those who are thinking it lives in my head. Small of your back. This one's my favorite. If anyone has located their loss was living in the small of your back, I invite you, my lower back friends, even into the hips, to twerk, to shake, to shimmy in that lower back. Consider the spaces between your vertebrae, right? Your grief is asking you to let it move about. It's not necessarily calling you to move on without it, but it wants to move about, give you some space. I believe grief wants to teach you something, wants to help you heal from the loss. The grief and the loss are not the same. The grief wants to help you heal from the loss, so you cannot suppress it and heal. You have to let it help you heal. What does it teach you about who you are now? What does it teach you about how you look at the world now? There's no right or wrong, but just notice. Notice it. Is there a word you can put to it? Is there language? I lost blank and I am grieving like blank. An example might be for me, just to offer one, I lost my mother and I am grieving like a teenager.
Mm,
Like a teenager. There's some rebellion to my grief of my mom. There's
mm,
some angst, but there's also a deep, deep dependence as I grow. My identity in that grief, remembering even Stephanie's words about what age is that? I'm not grieving like a 40-year-old mom. I'm grieving like a teenager who had some unfinished business with her mom at that stage of her life that I know I can't go back to and I won't resolve. But what is
mm,
it teaching me today? And for me,
mhm.
there is a movement with that. For me, it's in my feet. I could feel it tingling. I want to stomp. I want to jump. I want to kick something. So I'll just give us 5 seconds here to breathe in, inhale, exhale, and to come back to the present time.
Thank you so much for that great gift,
So
Maria.
that's an example, Stephanie. I would ask you to lean in more, but I'm gonna ask you something else if that's okay.
Sure thing.
Um, I want to know if there are ways in which you wish to be of service right now. You talk
Mm,
so eloquently about what is happening right now, and just, yeah, are there ways in which you wish to be of service right now?
mm. Thank you. Um, I am a person who's very passionate about providing wellness to the movement and fueling the fire and the light for the luminaries of this world. And a lot of that is through metabolizing our grief, what was, to help us reach towards what can be. And so I wish to be of service through facilitation. I wish to be of service through healing justice coaching. I wish to be of service through the allowing people to walk alongside me in sacred storytelling through my one woman show that will breathe into existence soon. Her name is But You're So Beautiful. And actually, I am asking for people to join me in that possibility of birthing that offering into the community. And that would be offering arts-racial healing circles throughout the community. Shout out to Dr. Gail Christopher, which is what guided so many of us to this space and hope and action. Um, and more opportunities for us to bear witness to our own stories, unearth them, and let them breathe to support in our healing. So that is a lot of what I'm passionate about. I also do have music in me. Your offering just now helped me remember that I get to grieve Dallas Rainham Kenna, Dautruche Rainham Kenna, and I grieve this beautiful soul like a songbird. And so, can there be there is music and an album that's in me and just wanting to birth that out too. There's a lot of streams in which I love on the world, and I just want more and more ways to be funded to love on the world and more ways to help pour love on the luminaries and the people of the movement.
Oh, I love that so much. Loving on the luminaries. And
Yeah.
that fuels your own light too. So,
Passionate, yes, yes.
yes,
That's why, yes. That
yeah,
and the metabolized grief is what fuels my joy and my light. Absolutely. But what
yes.
about you, Maria? Like, what ways in which you, how do you wish to be of service?
Oh, well, hmm, that's a funny question for me today. But
No.
I, I have started offering retreats. And it's largely because I have finally accepted that time and
Mhm,
space away from the everyday might be requirements for folks in order to return with a renewed spirit and energy. The first retreat I offered was focused on rest. And surprise, surprise, my next retreat is a grief retreat. And I've had a dream for years of offering a retreat around dreaming and visioning and creativity. So that one is forthcoming. You and I have even spoken, Stephanie, about collaborating so that you can bring sound healing into a retreat space that we would co-create, but I'd hold a container for. And so I'm really
Mhm.
intentional about how I go about offering these. I want to be of service by focusing on integration, on the reunion with and remembering who we are, the power we possess, and the responsibilities that we have
Mm.
to ourselves, to the earth, and to each other. Yeah, that collective liberatory wellness again. That's why I want to be of service. I want to keep pursuing it. I want to define it. I want to get work out there that contributes to the getting there of it. And I know we're not going to get there hiding or withdrawing or in seclusion or on
That's right.
vacation. So when I offer these retreats, I really am thinking of my greater service to the world at this time. Um,
Mhm.
the reconnection and the recalibration. So yeah, that's how I'm of service. And I hope
Yeah,
that that resonates with folks.
same,
What are
same.
you hoping for? I think we're close to close. So I guess that's
We are.
my yeah. What are you hoping for, Stephanie?
Mm. I'm hoping for us to have the opportunities to be together, to daydream together, and to consider what this healing world can look like. Um, for us to release ourselves away from urgency culture, and do the work that we need to do collectively to process our grief, our rage, to ground in our humanity, but also remember all the ages we've been to dream up what is possible. We are called to help create something that hasn't been in existence yet, and we all can
Mm,
collectively create something quite beautiful if we are sure we want to be well, which means releasing all the identities that have entangled us in this current narrative and in this current stream of consciousness. And so it requires for us to really do that work to acknowledge what we're ready to put down and let go of in order to dream what can be together. And that's what I hope
mm,
for us. What about you?
beautiful. Well, I think mine are simple as well, as well. I hope everyone listening to this podcast leaves comments of truth and affirmation about what they've heard and experienced with us. And I hope they make commitments to themselves to be and do what's necessary for their visions in the world. And that's all I'm hopeful about. That's it.
Yes, yes,
Very
yes.
simple.
Please stay in conversation with us, y'all. We want to know what resonated with you all, and we want to hear if there's any further questions. And I know that Maria and I are going to continue to passionately deliver on what we are even discussing here in this conversation to help be a supportive force to you even after this time for many times to come. Thanks, y'all.
For additional information, visit nationalcollaborative.org/hope in action.